right, welcome to Newsmax Now. I'm Bill Tucker. Well, what the election giveth, Harvard Law wants to take away. Lawrence Lessig at Harvard is leading a legal effort to destroy the way the Electoral College works. We'll get Larry Klayman's takes on efforts on rewriting the Constitution. And there is another health care bill in the works. Yes, this one, though, however, this latest effort is bipartisan. And it would not repeal or replace. It would shore up Obamacare. Betsy McCoy will be here to talk about that. And what's next for the NFL? Fans are angry and alienated, and the government wants to tell them what to do. We're going to take all of that up and see if we can't sort some of it out. All that and more coming up in the show. With me for the hour is my co-host, Tom Borelli, Ph.D., contributor to the Conservative Review, and he is a well-known conservative activist. And for those of you who watch the show, he's a well-known co-host here, appearing from time to time. Tom, good to see you. Welcome.
Great to be back.
It is. We got a lot of things to get to, and we've got just the man to start with this Electoral College issue with, and that is, of course, Larry Klayman. Larry is out there, founder of Freedom Watch. Wow, we've got a beautiful connection. And a former federal prosecutor. Larry, you have never appeared so sharp, so clear, and so absolutely devastatingly handsome. Good to see you.
Well, I hope that people think I'm sharp anyway. So I'm here.
Larry, this is my pet peeve story for today. This is under my skin in the wrong kind of way. Larry Lessig, Harvard professor, leads a group called Equal Citizen. He wants to do away with the Electoral College, but he doesn't call it that because he knows that would take a constitutional amendment and that would require a process that he doesn't want to go through. So what he wants to do is file suit and do away with the winner-take-all schemes in some states. The only problem with this, Larry, and you know this and Tom knows this, but for our viewers who don't, that's unconstitutional because elections are delegated to the state. The process belongs to the states. There can't be some kind of effort led by some smart aleck from Harvard Law who wants to just rewrite the Constitution because his candidate lost in the election for the president. I don't know if anybody else is as mad as I am about this, Larry, but I give you the floor.
Well, Bill, you're absolutely right. I mean, it can't be done. It would be a separation of powers violation. And it would take a constitutional amendment to change this thing. But, you know, that would take 100 years, frankly, to go through. So in terms of doing it the right way, there's virtually no chance. But with all these leftist judges on the lower bench in the federal courts, bring a case and they think they'll get a ruling. But they won't have a ruling that will stick. So this is basically just posturing. It may be wishful thinking by some leftist professor at Harvard, but it's not going to fly.
Larry, that's good to know, because I was wondering what kind of legal basis that could be on. But when I was reading about this, it kind of dawned on me, this is one of those issues like be careful what you pray for, because you might actually get it. Now, if one was to do, like through a legislature, have the votes be, electoral college votes be done by each congressional district, I mean, that really could make the map maybe look like that sea of red map that we saw in the county vote during the last election.
Well, that's the way they're going to try to get around it. And of course, this whole process is designed to let the states, the coasts, New York, California, East Coast, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, have a bigger say than the founders intended them to have. They wanted there to be equal distribution among the states. And that's why there's this winner take all, because that allows the Midwestern states to pile up, the Southern states to pile up votes for a candidate with regard to other portions of this country. And that's how President Trump won. If it had been apportioned, it would have been much less likely that he would have won.
Yeah, well, he doesn't get to do that because you know what? The federal government doesn't get to tell the states how to do their election process. Can you tell I might have grown up in Texas? Larry, I want to get to another issue, though, and that has to do with Robert Mueller. There is a bipartisan effort underway in Congress to protect Mr. Mueller. You've sued Mr. Mueller, and you've called for his outright dismissal. Do you think he's got to get the legal protection from Congress, or where are we on this particular issue? Mueller, for now, is fully active, clearly.
Well, that's also unconstitutional. This is a show on the Constitution today. Congress cannot impinge upon executive power. The power to appoint Mueller, the power to remove him, lies with the Justice Department. And I can tell you as a former Justice Department prosecutor, I, by the way, have filed complaints against Mueller, not just in federal court in Washington, D.C., where I am today, but I filed complaints with the Office of Professional Responsibility, with the Inspector General because there's so many leaks coming out of the Mueller investigation. It's like a sieve, and that's a violation of Rule E of the Rules of Criminal Procedure. He should be removed for that, and he could be prosecuted for that. I mean, just in the last few days, we got more information that the IRS now is obtaining tax documentation from these defendants. Now, I don't think the defendants, putative defendants rather, potential defendants, would be releasing this. Virtually, there are 2 or 3 leaks a day. This is an attempt to destroy the president and everybody around him, even if there are never indictments, even if there's no impeachment proceedings. It's like a preemptive nuclear strike, except President Trump is not North Korea, and Mueller should be gone. He's corrupt. I've had dealings with him for many, many years through my clients. Dennis Montgomery was improperly, they had his house seized. They tied him to a tree when Mueller was FBI director. There's been illegal surveillance going on at the FBI, not just under Mueller, but now under Comey, and hopefully not the current FBI director. This guy's dirty, and he needs to go. So those Republicans who think they're going to be cool and look nonpartisan in trying to cement Mueller as independent, as special counsel, are simply not just unconstitutional in terms of their actions, but they're also wrong. He should be removed right now. And you don't need Trump to do it. The Justice Department should conduct a thorough investigation and order him off the case now and appoint another independent counsel, or a special counsel as we now call it.
Larry, you bring up a great point. I can understand why the Democrats want this, but why in God's name would any Republican want to carry out this protection for Mueller? What are they thinking?
Well, because the Republican establishment, which is in decline, as we know, you saw Judge Moore be elected this, in effect. He's going to win down there in Alabama, thank God. But they're on the run, and they want to reassert themselves. President Trump has broken up their money gravy train. They want to run their establishment candidate in 2020. Frankly, they'd like to see the president gone, and they'll do anything they can to hurt him. And then you have people like Chairman Richard Burr of the Senate Intel Committee. It's bizarre. He's got his hands all over Mark Warner all day long. It's like they're best friends. It's ridiculous. And of course, you have a demographic in North Carolina, which is about 50% Democrat, 50% Republican, and they're trying to suck up votes from the Democratic side as well to protect themselves in upcoming elections.
Well, there are 2 questions, and I guess I'll go with this one for an observation first. There's an interesting survey that shows that increasingly members of the Republican Party are angry at Republicans, not at President Trump, but at Republican leadership, and in particular Mitch McConnell, and in particular Paul Ryan. They're willing to go along with President Trump, and they are getting increasingly frustrated and angry at what they see happening within the Republican Party, aka the establishment that you're talking about. And you referenced the election down in Alabama with Roy Moore handily walking away in the primary. That's all great, and that's interesting, and we can talk about that, and I do want to talk about it, but there's a problem with the president removing Mueller. I mean, there is a perception here. There's a serious perception issue that people are going to say there's a conflict of interest. He removed the guy that's investigating the guys, maybe even himself. And I don't know that that's going to go over well and with many people in the country, even with this shift that's happening within the Republican Party, Larry. I don't know how that's practical.
No, I think you're right, Bill. And that's why I'm saying is that the Office of Professional Responsibility is like Bar Disciplinary Council. They oversee the Department of Justice. They're to be conducting an investigation. You can see the complaint that we filed against Mueller at freedomwatchusa.org. If they have any degree of integrity, they will do an investigation, and they will likely confirm that Mueller and his compromised staff, most of which are donors to Hillary Clinton or voted for her, have been leaking information to damage various putative defendants in his investigation, including the president himself. And clearly, the president is under investigation. They have the power to remove Mueller. Mueller serves at the will of the Attorney General and the Justice Department. And even if Sessions doesn't have the guts to do it, or he feels like he's conflicted, then Rod Rosenstein, or even someone below Rosenstein, can tell Mueller to take a hike and can appoint a new special counsel. That's the way it can be done without having President Trump intervene himself.
Larry, I was really personally concerned when I read that the FBI had picked the locks of Paul Manafort's house and basically did a home invasion. And and this is, if anything, the issue here is a white criminal issue rather than a violent criminal. Are you aware of any of the Democrats or any of the left-wing groups upset about this sort of home invasion?
No, in fact, they're loving it. In fact, the left-wing groups, I mean, this is the irony. Since when do they have a problem with Russia? I've said this before. It's their homeland. I mean, the former Soviet, and this is what you would have expected of the KGB to do, or Putin to do. So their interest in Russia is only because they want to get rid of the president. Bernie Sanders, as you know, actually honeymooned in Russia.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I want to go to another issue really quickly, because I don't want to leave without touching on this with you. The NFL has a problem. They have a big problem. It's a business problem, however, and it's for them to decide. Larry, I've been disturbed recently that we have watched sessions, and now we're watching President Trump call on the NFL to ban protest. It's not their place. It's not the government's place to get involved in somebody's business. I understand it's well intended, but this is the Attorney General and the President of the United States. This isn't Bill, Larry, and Tom talking about what we think ought to happen. What's your reaction to this, I guess, is the way I want to put it.
I wrote a column for Newsmax earlier in the week. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org or at Newsmax's website. But this is commercial activity. Okay, you pay for a ticket to go to a game or to buy sporting gear or whatever. It's not like these people can do whatever they want. There's kind of a contract between the fans and the teams. And the reason these owners have backed off is because they're wary of the players just going out on strike, and they couldn't make their billions of dollars. And I've advocated that if these fans don't start to be respected, because we don't like this kind of thing, we're not paying for disrespect to our country. If that continues to happen, I think Congress should be pressured to remove the antitrust exemption on the NFL. They currently can price fix, they can divide markets. That's why the price of tickets are so high. Most people can't afford them. And frankly, I don't know why they're protected. If they were anybody else and didn't have the antitrust exemption, they probably could be sued for price fixing under the antitrust laws and also under RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. That should be threatened, because either they toe the line, either they, have some respect for our country, or just get out of the kitchen, so to speak. That's my view.
I know. It's a nice piece. Again, you can see it on the Newsmax website, or you can go to Judicial Watch, or freedomwatch.org, and see it there. Yeah, and see it there. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Well, President Trump says he's changing his strategy on health care, and it's going to bring in some Democrats into the mix. We're going to get Betsy McCoy's opinion on that and much more next. Stay around.